Good day to brew, baby. What is up, YouTube? It's your boy, Millsy. Back with Hometown Commander, back for another episode of Millsy Brewers, the show where I brew version 1.0 deck lists of the commander in front of us in my quest to brew the magic world. You know the motto, baby. It's OEBB, always be brewing, and that's what we're back to do today. The deck list is going to be down in the description for you below, as well as I'd really appreciate it if you could interact with the video, like, comment, subscribe. Consider checking out those links in the description. I'd appreciate it. The Discord's been popping lately, and I'd love for you to come join. But today, we're continuing through Dragon Week, and we got to talk about red dragons at some point. And I think there's no other red dragon fitting to lead a deck more than Lathliss Dragon Queen. A 6-mana 6/6 dragon that whenever another non-token dragon comes in, we get to make a 5/5 dragon token, and we can spend 2 mana to buff all of our dragons up by +1/+0. Lathliss is a really great utility dragon in a lot of other dragon decks, which I think is what makes her perfect for leading her own deck, because getting those dragon tokens is going to help us really push our battlefield forward. We're missing some of the support we get in some of the other colors we get, but we still got a lot of raw support. We still have a lot of really great mono red dragons, since dragons are centered in red. So we still have access to a lot of great things. We got access to a lot of great Dragons Matters card, as well as we can just build up a ton of value with things like haste and other things to get our dragons in the turn they come down. But I'd love to thank the channel members for supporting the channel. Thank you so much for supporting the channel. If you're interested in seeing all of our videos just a little bit early for just $1 a month, check it out down below. But all right, Mono Red has so many options for dragons. I just wanted to kind of show off some of the ones that are going to be really beneficial for us. Atsushi, it's a 4-mana 4/4 that when it dies, we can either exile the top 2 cards of our library and play them until the end of our next turn, or get a couple treasures. It's also just not a bad body with flying and trample. Balefire Dragon is one of my favorites towards the top end for being a dragon people aren't going to expect. When it hits a player, you can deal that much damage to each creature they control. Again, just if someone doesn't have a flyer, you can get in and just wipe just their board. Just really help push your opponents back down so you could keep your lead active. Gain access whenever it or another dragon comes in, you get a treasure token, a great ability, allowing us to stock up some mana for a future turn, right, to play more and more dragons. Goldlust Triad and Goldspat Dragon both are going to make treasures when they attack. Goldlust Triad does it whenever it hits a player in combat, and also packs Myriad to potentially get a couple of other treasures in the same combat, whereas Goldspat just makes a treasure when it attacks, but it adds on the line to allow all of our treasure to tap for 2 mana instead of 1. This is really useful because there's a lot of great ways in red to make treasures, and so we're going to be happily able to do that in our deck. Inferno of the Star Mounts is a big 6/6 with the haste that can't be countered. And for a red mana, we can give it that fire-breathing ability just to get it a little bit bigger every turn and hit for more damage. Parafet Thrasher is one of the new ones from the commander decks. Whenever one or more of our dragons hit an opponent, we can choose one that hasn't been chosen this turn, or we do choose one that hasn't been chosen this turn. Destroy an artifact that player controls, deal 4 to each other opponent, or exile the top card of our library and play it this turn. At minimum, you're talking about 4 other damage to each opponent. At maximum, you're talking about caking out a key enchantment and maybe getting some extra stuff to play this turn. Parafet's a great option that just opens up more value for us. Red Dragon, whenever it comes in, deals 4 damage to each opponent. Again, not a bad way to hand out some damage, and can be relevant, especially when red, where we have ways to make copies of Red Dragon if we wanted to. Some more temporary copies. Roaming Throne just makes a ton of sense, mainly because it's going to double up on Lathliss, making us 5/5 dragon tokens, right? But it also becomes a dragon itself when it comes in, making sure it plays along with all of our other dragon abilities. Roaming Throne is just a great card in any deck where you care about all your creatures being the same type and have a lot of triggered abilities, which we do in our deck. Almost every ability in our deck is a triggered ability, so Roaming Throne packs a really big punch. Scourge of the Throne says whenever it attacks for the first time each turn, if you're attacking the player with the most life total or tied for the most life total, you just get an extra combat. Again, very useful when all of our creatures in the air and going to be hitting in pretty hard to help us close the game out a little bit faster. Scourge of Valkas is one of 2 copies of a pretty cool ability in our deck. Whenever a dragon comes in, it deals X damage to any target, where X is the number of dragons we control. Again, just pointing out more damage along the way. Steel Hellkite, as a dragon I like, it gets kind of overshadowed in 3 or 4 color or 5 color dragon decks because there's so many other dragon options. But Steel Hellkite's a really fun option, especially against things like token decks. So when it hits a player, you can pay X to destroy each non-target land with, or non-target permanent with non-land permanent with mana value X that they control. So 0 is going to hit tokens. You know, you could go 1 or 2 against artifact type decks and maybe hit a bunch of things. Hellkite's just got a lot of fun versatility. And depending on what your opponents have, you can kind of plan to use it really beneficially for you. Thunderman Dragon's probably one of the better new dragons we got out of the commander decks, letting you play dragons with power 4 or greater off the top of your deck, and they get haste if they come in that way. I love this because it's going to allow us to extend our hand, have more options of dragons to play, and just get more value as those dragons come in, especially giving them haste. Thundermaw Hellkite, when it comes in, is going to deal the damage to each creature with flying our opponent's control and tap them down, making a nice big turn for our dragons to get in the air if we're playing against other flying decks. Twin Flame Tyrant's going to double all the damage our things deal, which is pretty great, right? Especially with these 4/4s and 5/5 dragons in the air. That doubling is just going to lead to bigger and better combats for us, as that's going to be our goal, right? Is to end the game in combat. Udvara Hellkite makes a 6/6 dragon whenever one of our dragons attack, just giving us value, more bodies on the board. Those are now become great blockers for us, right, on our opponent's turns. And then on the next turn, they're just going to continue to make real threats to our opponents. Vengeful Ancestors are a really fun dragon. Whenever it enters or attacks, we get to go to target creature. And whenever a goaded creature attacks, it deals 1 damage to its controller. So again, just forcing our opponents to attack other people can be really useful, as we're probably going to be out damaging our opponents, and kind of switching the table dynamic a little bit as we push ourselves ahead. And then Wrathful Red Dragon can help protect our dragons from damage. Whenever a dragon we control is dealt damage, it can deal that damage to any target that isn't a dragon. Again, just sending that damage back and hurting our opponents as well, and hopefully getting some cross value that way, right, as we're continuing to threaten in the air. But we have a lot of cards in our deck, of course, that are going to care about dragons that aren't dragons. Things like Invasion of Tarkir, a battle that when it comes in, you can reveal some dragons from your hand, where X is the number of dragons you reveal plus 2 damage to any other target. And then when it flips over, it becomes a dragon that lets our dragons deal 2 damage to any target whenever they attack. Just again, getting more of that incremental damage out as we're trying to get our dragons in and get our dragons going for combat. Sarkhan is a great value planeswalker. He has 2+1 abilities. One lets us pitch a card to draw a card, and the other just adds 2 mana that can only be spent to cast dragons. Both of these things are pretty useful, digging us through our deck if we need it, adding more mana if we need it, and then if we can get him up to his ultimate, just making a bunch of dragon tokens, which is pretty cool as well. Dragonlord Surfeit, Dragon Speaker Shaman, and Nogi all just reduce the cost of our dragon spells, making them a little bit cheaper. Nogi gets the upside of if it attacks and we have 3 or more dragons, it becomes a dragon in the air, which is really nice, right? Allowing it to hit a little bit harder. But again, this reduction is huge because then it makes the chance of us being able to play multiple dragons in a turn, right, even more viable. Playing some mana rocks like Cornelian Orb and Dragonstorm Globe. Cornelian Orb, if you use the mana from it to cast a dragon, the dragon gets haste. Dragonstorm Globe just gives a counter to every dragon that comes in, making them that little bit bigger. Herald's Horn is going to reduce the cost of all of our dragons by 1, and then at the beginning of our upkeep, we can look at the top card. If it's a dragon, we can reveal it, put it to our hand. Basically, it can give us an extra draw, right, every turn, depending on if it's a dragon, we basically get an extra draw right into our hand. Orb of Dragonkind is a mana rock that can give us 2 mana in a combination of any colors to cast a dragon, or we can sack it to look at the top 7 and get a dragon from among them into our hand. So either mana or, go getting a dragon that we might need. We're, of course, playing our Dragonstorm from Tarkir Dragonstorm, Breaching Dragonstorm. Basically, it's going to let us discover for 8. And if we play it, that's great. We can play without paying its mana cost. If we don't play it, we put it into our hand. And then whenever another dragon comes in, we can bounce Dragonstorm back to our hand. There's a lot of ways you can look at Breaching Dragonstorm. I think it's just an interesting value piece, especially in a deck where you want the card draw and the value and you can get it. And being able to potentially play it multiple times in a turn could be fun, depending on what you get off of it or what you make. Remember, Lathliss makes a token when another dragon comes in. If you hit a dragon with this and Lathliss is out, the 5/5 dragon and the dragon you play off of this, both of them would cause this to bounce back to your hand, right? And you could play it again. Then you have things like Crucible of Fire, just to buff all of our dragons, make them even bigger, especially those dragons we're making with Lathliss become bigger, better blockers, and just better attackers overall to push in towards our opponents. As far as some other things we can use in the deck to find some more value, of course, I love Aggravated Assault. It's a card I've always enjoyed, and in a deck like this, it's just going to help us close the game out faster. 5 mana just to untap all of our creatures and take another combat. There are going to be turns where you have the mana just to do this, or you might need to find ways to find mana for it. And you have options like Reaver Cleaver, which allows the creature to get a little bit of a buff and trample. And then whenever it hits a player in combat, you just make that many treasures, which could fund Aggravated Assault's cost to do this. Agassalt's a little better in 2 and 3 color dragon decks where you can pair it with more ways to make that mana, but we do have some ways to make that mana, especially with things like Goldspan and Goldlust Triad making treasures when they attack. It might be able to allow us to do this multiple times per turn. And since our dragons are in the air, right, they're just going to hit pretty hard. Flame Shadow Conjuring is an enchantment that says whenever another non-token creature enters, we can pay a red. If we do, we get a copy of it with haste until end of turn. This is just a really nice ability to copy up on some of our key dragons that aren't legendary, right? Getting them in haste and getting another attacker. But remember that with Lathliss, if we do this, we're getting another dragon tokens. We're just adding to the board no matter what for a red mana. We have another kind of similar copy of that in Molten Echoes. The only difference is Molten Echoes lets you choose a type and you don't have to pay the red, you just get it automatically. So we kind of effectively get 2 copies of this effect. Again, to either give us, at minimum, another 5/5 dragon if we were copying legendary dragons, but at maximum, another one of those dragon tokens and a hasty copy of that dragon that we can attack with this turn. And then something like Gratuitous Violence or Fire Emancipation that are going to double or triple the amount of damage our things deal, right? Getting in, needing less combats to close out the game by hitting our opponents. But I've said it before on the show, and I'll say it again, no deck's ever complete. This is my version 1.0 shot at Lathliss. And as we go into testing, I think there's some things I'd want to see, which is, are we getting enough Dragons Around down? Do we need some things like Urza's Incubator to add alongside our Herald's Horn to make all of our dragons a little bit cheaper? I mean, we're playing a lot of those style effects, so do we need another one? Since we're in monocolored decks, you have options like Cage Sun or Gauntlets of Power that are going to let you have your lands tap for 2 mana of that type instead of 1, allowing us just to have more mana for the turn to cast more dragons. I think those could be really viable for us if we find out we need them. And then I try my best to use a good mix of dragons, but we do have some better red dragons like Terror of the Peaks that I just didn't get into the list just due to the real life cost, but is a great dragon and could make a ton of sense to just immediately come in and be a great role player in our deck, especially when Lathliss makes 5/5 dragons whenever another dragon comes in. But let's get into our playtest. Remember, the goal of playtest on our channel is not to find magical Christmas land. It's not to show off our best plays, but it's to kind of get in some game scenarios and understand what we're looking for in our hands. Here we're keeping a 3-laner with that Carnelian Orb. We see our Reaver Cleaver, Valkis, and Goldlust Triad. So we've got a good start. We're starting to work our way up towards Lathliss amounts of mana. We could do the Tarkir this turn for 4 if we really want to. Take out a key target. If not, no worries at all on 3 here. I think we're just going to go for the Carnelian Orb, get ourselves up to 4 mana total. Be 5 mana, right? Here on this turn. Goldlust could be a good dragon for next turn in case we don't hit a land to get us some treasures in order to make sure we have mana for Lathliss, is kind of my thought. We could always go with something like Valkis for the damage, but I like Goldlust just so that next turn, which we didn't, or sorry, no, I apologize, it would have done it this turn because of the haste from Carnelian Orb, so we would have gotten probably 3 treasures, I would guess. So now as we come into this turn, we're at 8 mana, right? Lathliss is 6, so we do have that option. We could go for something like Reaver Cleaver to get a couple extra treasures and have more mana for the next turn. It's 6 total for the Reaver Cleaver. My thought here is now this is a 5/4. You're going to get 2 from the copies probably, and then 5 from the Cleaver, right? So now we've just got a ton of mana, and I would just go ahead and get Lathliss in. Right, and get that party started for next turn. Now, 5 mana, right? 3 extra from treasure, so we got 8 mana total. I like the idea of something like Parafit. I like the idea of something like Invasion and Tarkir. Like we could go Tarkir plus the Stormscale Sign to get 2 of them, right? Buff up our board. We could reveal all 4 of our dragons here if we want to. My thought is use the 2, 3, 6 for the Stormscale Scion. What this does is gets us a copy of the Stormscale Scion, and then we get 1 5/5 dragon with Lathliss, and then have the real Goldlust attack one of our player, have the 2 copies attack Lathliss, go at the battle so we could flip it over. So we're getting a treasure each from the copy of Goldlust, 5 from the real Goldlust, and then 1 from this dragon coming in. And I'm actually sorry, it would have been 2 more off this because of the storm scales. And we get one of these when this dragon comes in. And now, right, our board's just set with dragons. We've got a ton of mana. And we can just hopefully rebuild. If somebody were to wipe the board, you know, we'd still have the Reaver Cleaver. We could rebuild with the treasures and just keep the party going. But let's get into playtest number 2. Keeping a 2-lander with the Carnelian Orb. There's Nogi. There's the Orb. So we do have a way to get some extra mana there. Vengeful Ancestor and the Tyrant's Familiar. So Castle Embereth is a land that comes in tapped unless we control a mountain. Every other land in our deck's a mountain, so we're not worried about that. And for 3 mana, you can give all of your creatures a little buff. Here, right, just get the Orb down. Gives us access to another mana. Here, I like the idea of Nogi. The only problem is it's not a dragon, so I can't do like Carnelian Orb and then into that. So this can put 1 into it to get 2. I could do this and get another red mana. It would get me a little closer to Lathliss next turn. Remember, I can't tap this except for dragon, so I think that makes the most sense calling red. And then move into our next turn. So now we've got 3, 4, 5 mana total here. If I go Carnelian Orb, I just don't have enough mana to cast a dragon. I could go like Vengeful plus Mox Jasper. That would give me 2 dragon, 2 mana I can use, but again, not enough to get another dragon down. But again, could be a nice setup for the next turn. I'm trying to think of how do I get the most value out of this turn. The Orb only leads me to 3 mana, and the 2 of it has to be for dragon, so I can't even do it with. I couldn't even do it with like Nogi, right? Because it's not going to do enough, right? Because if I do Nogi and then Mox Jasper, I can't actually tap the Jasper, right? I think the question just has to be something like the Ancestor plus the Jasper just to get us set up for next turn. Now we get the land. So 4, 5, 6 mana, 7 if we want to put down a dragon, which we do, right? We want to put down Lathliss. Or we could get down something like Tyrant's Familiar, but let's do something like Lathliss, get the Vengeful Ancestor moving there. Here we could go 3 for the Orb. That would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 mana for a dragon. We could go deep, Orb plus Dragonstorm Globe. But I kind of like the idea of just getting the Familiar in. Right, and just that'll get us that 5/5 dragon. And then just get attacking, right? Get these guys attacking in, get them going. Remember, Tyrant's Familiar, as long as we control our commander, it gets +2/+2 whenever it attacks. It deals 7 damage to a creature defending player control. So it has haste too. So 7, a 6, and a 3 in the air, right? That's going to hopefully get to attack next turn. Ooh, the Soul Ring is going to help a ton. Remember, they get the buff from Heraldic Banner. I do that. I'm now at 6 mana. Pitch the Orb away into the big score just to try to see some more things into our hand. We can use them next turn, use these dragons next turn, and again, just get attacking. And now I just wish we had a haste outlet, but we're just, again, still in good shape playing our dragons, and we've got the mana from those treasures that tide us over. But again, the buff from the banner's great. The Dragonstorm Glows, having them come in with an extra counter on them, even the tokens. This doesn't say non-token, so even Lathliss's tokens come in. And now we've got 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 mana. So we'd be able to just play, right, Throne plus Dragonhawk. Plus the treasures, right? So we've just got a bunch of dragons coming in. They may not have haste, but that's okay, because, we're just going to keep attacking, keep the party going, and Dragonhawk can get us value there. The Scourge of the Throne could potentially get us an extra combat, and I think we're just still in good shape. Carnelian Orb might have made sense for the Scourge of the Throne, depending on where life totals are at, but we couldn't have known, right? We were just trying to get the most value in our hand. Not bad when you can see a Soul Ring, 2-lander with Soul Ring, Seize the Spoils, a draw spell that makes a treasure and draws a couple cards, Balefire, Molten Echoes, and Nogi. So we've got an interesting start into there. Turn 2, we can either crack the Seize the Spoils or get Nogi down. I kind of like the idea of just getting Nogi down just to be safe. Turn 3, I think I'm going to pitch the Outcast to Seize the Spoils. So we draw 2 and make a treasure. We've got 2 mana left. Not too much we're going to do, just trying to set ourselves up for this next turn. Now we're at 5 mana without the treasure, and Nogi has everything cost 1 less. So we can still play a 7-cost dragon, or we can just play a 6-cost dragon right now, which I kind of like the idea of doing with Lathliss and just setting ourselves up for the next turn. Here we're at 6 mana, 7 with the treasure. Remember, dragons cost 1 less. I love the idea of trying to set up Molten Echoes, but we've got multiple legendary dragons in our hand. Cavern Horde might be able to come down for cheap enough here if somebody has a lot of if they have a lot of artifacts, right? Otherwise, I think, something like Inferno could be good just to get us the 5/5, get your attacks in here. No, he can't attack just yet. It just needs 1 more. Oh, it's just 3 more dragons in total. Oh, so Nogi could attack and become a 5/5, getting us a nice attack in the air. Then here's 7 plus the 1. Cavern Horde should be able to come in pretty much no matter what. Again, take some big attacks. It's a nice thing here about playing a dragon deck is, if you're worried about waffling in the middle game, as long as you have dragons down, you're probably not going to. They're going to be big enough to really affect the board. Cavern could make us a ton of treasures here if we hit the right person, just funding us for more value in bigger turns. Dragonhawk gives us some card advantage, being able to exile those cards and allow us to cast them. Balefire can give us damage on a player. We could always big score a card away that we don't want, to draw some more cards. Again, I like the spot here. The next turn, you could always dump a ton of mana into Inferno if you want to make it even bigger, to make it even a bigger threat attacking into somebody. But as these dragons, right, kind of sit here and this board grows, we're just going to get bigger and better in combat. But let's do one last one. Keeping the 2-lander with the Orb, Heraldic Banner, Agasol, and Sarkhan's Triumph. So we have a way to go get a dragon, which is nice. I think we're just kind of waiting till turn 3 here and we can ramp a little bit. There's the Orb. If I do this at the moment, I'm not really playing anything in specific next turn, so I think I'll go with the Banner. We miss out on the land, but that's okay. We can go Carnelian Orb into Dragon Grind Orb. Then now we've got 3, 4, 5, 6 mana. So there's the 7th for Lathliss. 7. Lathliss can come in with haste, right, because of the Carmelian Orb and take a big attack. Remember, we could sack Maelstrom to go search for a dragon if we want to, but I mean, now we have haste with at least the Orb. Now the question is, what can we go get? We have the Sarkhan's Triumph, which can go search for something. It's only 4 mana, though, so, I mean, the dragon I was thinking of was something like Goldspan to really start, getting mana or something like that. If I'm Flame Shadow, I only have 3 mana. And it's 6 unless it's for a dragon, right? So, kind of like the idea of the Inferno and just kind of getting the party started, right? Get us some stuff on board. Coming the next turn, remember 7 again. Only 6 if it's going to be without only 6 though for non-dragons. Sorry, that Inferno. Or sorry, anything would have haste because of the Carnelian Orb anyway. So that's the kind of nice part about playing something like the Despot if we wanted to. Do that, give it haste, we become the Monarch, so we draw at the end of turn. Get into our next turn, so now we're at 8, right? And we would have gotten, let's say we were the Monarchs, we get the 5/5. I'm just trying to think of like what in our deck could we triumph for 5 mana that like really changes our board state. Again, I like the idea of something like Goldspan just to get the mana, but this would get us a couple more 5/5s if we play this, right? Because it would double up on Lathliss's trigger. This would get haste. We could attack again, attack with a couple of the dragons, right? We do still have the option to go digging on Orbit Dragonkind if we want to, but I think we've got plenty enough in our hand. It's just trying to continue to maneuver ourselves into the good value. I really wish I could find a way to give all my other dragons haste, right? That would be the ideal one, but I'm just thinking of new dragons coming in. I can give one dragon haste. 1, 2, 3, 4 mana. So we got 9 mana total. Only one of it really would have to be dragons only if we do it that route. Wrathful, make 2 5/5s. I don't know if we drew off the Monarch or not, if we still had it. We could go digging for something like Triumph, or just like set up the Ag Assault for next turn if we can get there. Longer on that playtest, but still want to see the process of us moving those things out. But let me know, what do you think of Lathliss? What would you change about it? Do you have a Lathliss deck? What does yours look like? I'd love to know what you think of yours versus mine, and I will catch you on the next one.